we are going to the Imperial War Museum in Duxford. I mean, 2 weeks ago we visited that wonderful ALG air landing ground on Remembrance Sunday, and what a wonderful place. We thought let's keep the history in the mid 20th century and talk about the great RAF. And honestly, Duxford is the most incredible place, and it's going to be lots of fun. Now, it was actually built during the First World War and saw a little bit of action, but it wasn't until 1938, just before the Second World War broke out, that the first Spitfire was flown in. I mean, in June 1940, Belgium, Holland, France, they were all in German occupation. This is where Duxford really gets to see some action. We're talking about the Battle of Britain, and it really did see an awful lot of action. I mean, and we can't mention Duxford without talking about the great Douglas Bader. I mean, he was born, I think, in 1911. 1928 he joined the RAF. In 1930, doing a bit of aerobatics and sort of show-offio stuff, he crashed, lost both his legs, nearly lost his life. But he recovered. He tried to join the RAF again, but they actually said no. But in 1939, the outbreak of the war, they accepted him back in, and he went to Dunkirk. He was there, you know, helping the forces to get back to England. He took down 22 enemy planes during the Battle of Britain in 1940. He was a real hero. In 1941, though, however, he was shot down in France, German-occupied France, and he was locked up. Now, this guy didn't have any legs. He made 2 or 3 attempted escapes and nearly made it. They had to lock him up in Colditz. I mean, how embarrassing for the Germans. But Sir Douglas Bader, what a man. Here we are, RAF Duxford, or Duxford Imperial War Museum as we know it now. That's a huge hangar. That's absolutely massive. That was built around, I think about 12 years ago now. But you've got all the old hangars over to the left, and we'll be visiting, I think, Hangar 3, where we've got the Spitfire and the Hurricane. Oh, look at that, the Tiger Moth. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, they were still using this in the Second World War as a training aircraft. It's gorgeous. And that is a Lancaster bomber. And we're going to just go upstairs and get a better view of that. What a bomber. Fantastic. There's a Concorde sitting in the back there. It's not what we've come here to see today, but just wonderful to see it. Most beautiful, iconic aircraft. Wow. Just a giant boy's bedroom, isn't it? Rolls-Royce and Merlin engine, look at that. Oh. There's the line, Napier line. Ah, aero engines. I can just hear that. Robert's having fun here. Just demonstrating different parts of the aircraft. What have we got over here? Thrust. Oh, thrust. Let's see what thrust does. Right, here we go. Look at that. That is just so Da Vinci, isn't it? Wonderful. Now at this point we left the main hangar and worked our way up the airfield where all the other hangars are and little offices and all sorts. I'm going to have to do voiceover sometimes because, you know, it wasn't always appropriate to suddenly blurt out next to somebody, well, you know, wouldn't be very fair. And also I'd just like to say that that looks just like my desk at work. Now let's just go back to the First World War, because this is the first plane we actually came across, and the de Havilland DH9, and it was the first plane to be actually stationed at Duxford, and a beautiful thing. It's a biplane still, and of course they were right through to the 1930s, as we'll see with the next one. Ah, it's the Hawk and Nimrod, beautiful plane, made in the 1930s, designed to land on aircraft carriers, still a biplane. Of course, if you want to reduce the drag and get more speed, you take the top wing off, and soon after this, that's exactly what they did. Here's the Hurricane. Isn't it lovely? I mean, not quite as sexy as a Spitfire, but he's looking happy with himself. And you know, they were a great plane. They were more robust than the Spitfire, not as fast, but they were easy to repair, and they were more steady. So when they were firing, they were a steadier gun platform. And now over here, we got a Messerschmitt. mostly taken down. I think it was in Sussex by a Hurricane or a Spitfire. And look at those propellers. Oh dear, oh dear. And here is actually a photograph of when it first came down. And there's the Anderson shelter. I mean, 6.5 foot by 4.5 foot, corrugated, 6 sheets of corrugated steel, bolted together and covered with concrete if you could afford it. If not, earth. And you know, most people had one in their back garden or their yard. And this is a lovely model of an observer's corpse post. You know, there's so many volunteers out there. 1940, radar didn't work on land, so they reported all their enemy aircraft that they found all over the country. Now this is a tail fin and an engine from a Heinkel bomber that was found at the bottom of a lake in Norway in 1974. The story goes that it tried to land on the lake, obviously it was frozen, but not frozen enough. These planes, they suffered during the war. They weren't very heavily armoured. They took huge casualties, and they were best really under the cover of darkness, so they came into their own during the Blitz. Okay, this is the operations room, and well, let's go in and see.
Duxford here, now both 19 and 310 squadrons airborne.
Hello Carolina, hello Carolina. Repeat you loud and clear. Are you receiving me? Over.
Well, just for a while we'll break away from the RAF and the sky and get down into the ground. And here I'm standing next to this amazing howitzer gun, and we're going to go into the land warfare. So come on, follow me. There you go, there's a German mountain gun there. That's from the First World War. Look at that, that's gorgeous. There's a Kaiser 857 engine, I believe. Wonderful. What have we got over here? Mark 10, the Mark 10 General Service Wagon. Wonderful. It looks like something out of the 1750s actually. It's crazy. Oh, and I wonder where my old boots have gone. Oh dear, been missing those for years. Oh look. What's that old vehicle down there? What have we got here? We've got a little Springer all-terrain model down there, and there's a Challenger main battle tank at the back there. Look at that. Wonderful. Oh, there's a little Ferret Scout. I actually knew somebody had one of these a few years ago. Sold it on eBay for $5,500. It wasn't as good condition as that. Oh look, an A34 comment, if I'm not mistaken. Wow, cool, and everything else. Look at this. Now this, here's something from the desert. Now at this point, I completely forgot about audio. It was just all core and wow and more course. And by the time I'd really composed myself, a load of other people had sort of come around. I didn't want to sound like a tour guide, but yeah, this was the British M3A3 Grant tank that Monty used, or let's call it Lieutenant General Montgomery, used at the Battle of Alamein. It's wonderful. Okay, now we're just looking inside the German tank destroyer. What's it called, Robert?
I believe it's the T100, I believe.
T100, look at that. I mean, it's really cramped in there. You cannot imagine. And when they got hit, and they used to, well, basically, you know, get very, very hot. And it used to be called a brew up, apparently. And that's a pretty awful description. And that's what happened in there. But, oh, God, can you imagine? And here we are. Here was the birth of metal detecting, thanks to the landmines. Amazing. This is incredible. Such a treat. Look at all this. So a little bit of hands-on here, steel helmets, and it wasn't just used to protect their head, they could carry water in there and even do cooking. That's a fact. Look at that, it's a Thompson submachine gun. Wow, that's heavy. And here it is, the classic 303 rifle, where we find many of these shells, bullets and cases on the field whilst we're metal detecting. There it is, the Spitfire. What a wonderful machine, what a beautiful, iconic design. Well, what a visit. RAF Duxford, and thanks to this wonderful place, for generations to come we'll be able to, you know, learn and remember just what went on over 70 years ago.